This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and today I'm going to go into something a little bit different, but not different at the same time. I think something that's not talked about enough, and I mean that because it probably wasn't really, nobody actually spoke to me about it, to be honest with you. I didn't really go into this until I started reading a book called To Be a Man by Robert Masters, earlier this year actually, and that book, it really fucking pulled me apart, hey? Like, it really... He's a psychologist, and he really wrote this book on effectively what it is to be a man. But there's... I'll go through that in greater depth, probably for the Mood Prep Online guys another time, but the idea of shame and the shame that men hold. Now, another really good book is Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. She goes into the shame that women hold and how they differ. And I think that's a really important thing, right? But I'm going to talk about this from predominantly like a man's point of view today, because I am a man. Let's not assume otherwise, shall we? It's 2018. Get progressive. Come on. But there's a passage in Daring Greatly that my girlfriend shared with me that I want to share with you, and that's what I'm going to start this sort of podcast with. And then I'm going to pull apart a couple of things from there afterwards. So hopefully, you can get something from this and play along at home. So there's a little bit of this story here, but bear with me. So Brené Brown, this is her book, Daring Greatly. It's page 83. As it turns out, it was definitely a strange new world, a world of unspoken hurt. I got a glimpse into that world in 2005, the world of shame, that is. At the end of one of my lectures, a tall, thin man who I'd guess was in his early 60s followed his wife to the front of the room. He was wearing a yellow golf sweater, an impression I will never forget. I spoke with his wife for a few minutes as I signed a stack of books and that she bought herself and for her daughters. As she started to walk away, her husband turned to her and said, "I'll be right there, give me a minute." She clearly didn't want him to stay and talk to me. She tried coaxing him with a couple of come-ons, but he didn't budge. I, of course, was thinking, go with her, dude, you're scaring me. After a few unsuccessful attempts, she walked toward the back of the room, as he turned to face me at my book signing table. It started innocently enough. "I like what you have to say about shame," he told me. "It's interesting." I thanked him and waited. I could tell there was more coming. He leaned in closer and asked, "I'm curious. What about men and shame? What have you learned about us?" I felt instant relief. This wasn't going to take long because I didn't know much, I explained. I haven't done much interviews with men. I just study women. He nodded and said, "Well, that's convenient." I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up in defense. I forced a smile and asked, "Why convenient?" in the very high voice that I use when I'm uncomfortable. He replied by asking me if I really wanted to know. I told him yes, which was a half-truth. I was on my guard. Then his eyes welled up with tears. He said, "We have shame. Deep shame. But when we reach out and share our stories, we get the emotional shit beat out of us." I struggled to maintain eye contact with him. His raw pain had touched me, but I was still trying to protect myself. Just as I was about to make a comment about how hard men are on each other, he said, "Before you say anything about those mean coaches, bosses, brothers, and fathers being the only ones," he pointed toward the back of the room where his wife was standing and said, "My wife and daughters, the ones you signed all those books for, they'd rather see me die on top of my white horse than watch me fall off. You say you want us to be vulnerable and real, but come on, you can't stand it. It makes you sick to see us like that." Holding my breath, I had this very visceral reaction to what he was saying. It hit me the only way truth can. He let out a long sigh, and as quickly as he began, he said, "That's all I wanted to say. Thanks for listening." Then he just walked away. I spent years researching women and hearing their stories of struggle. In that moment, I realized that men have their own stories, and that if we're going to find our way out of it, out of shame, it will be together. So this section is about what I've learned about women, men, how they hurt each other, and how we need to heal each other. Or need each other to heal, rather. See, this is interesting, right? Since going on a deeper journey of somewhat self-discovery. That's not even the right word, right? It was when I first started, I read a book called King by Elliot Hulse last year, which led into the book called King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which I talk about a lot, the 4 archetypes of mature masculine. And I think that's one of the best reads that any man and any woman to learn more about men, but there's also female archetypes as well. To be a man by Robert Masters went into shame on a great deal. And it showed me that not just myself, like the shame that I hold, or at least held, and the men around me, and I started to observe reality with a different lens. Not to see people as people that have it all together or people that don't feel pain, but I would sit in a cafe and I would look around and I'm like, every single one of us here has some topic that if brought up, they would well up on the spot. Like, we're all just doing our best to fucking get through this, right? It's like, fuck. People talk about kindness, and I don't think kindness is as important as honesty, because some people mistaking just being kind, but I'm like, you don't believe that, so that's not honest, therefore it's not kind, right? And the interesting thing about this idea of shame and how that's all tied into this is like, a lot of the shame that we hold isn't necessarily our fault. Maybe we made a mistake at some area in our life. I know I've made a fucking shit ton of mistakes. I've hurt a lot of people. I really have, right? And I know there's people out there that don't think very highly of me at all. And there's some that have probably good reason to, or at least they did at the time. And I have a choice. I have a choice with these mistakes. The feelings that I associate with not being man enough, or you know, hurting people, or when I was younger, you know, projecting all my insecurities onto people and then, you know, really hurting them and not realizing what I was doing till I was older. I have a choice to wear these every single day and like weigh me down and help dictate how I communicate with humans today. Or I have a choice to accept that as a part of the story that was, and to not let that past be a part of my future. One of the ways that I heal my shame is by going and teaching young men how to be young men. A lot of people listening to this right now sort of gone a bit silent, I'm sure, but most of us don't talk about this, and you women as well. I know you women are in this. The shame around trying to be perfect, and you're not perfect, and you're still there, and you're trying to make someone else happy, and you're making yourself miserable in the process. Right? We have all of this stuff that we don't have to live with. Maybe we don't know how to get it, and I can't give advice for every single individual. Whenever I work one-on-one and I coach with people and I see the things they bring forward, I'm like, how am I meant to give advice for fucking 1,000 people? Right? It's so difficult. But I just try and share a story here and there to let you know that whatever it is that you're effectively working on shedding that's no longer serving you, there is a way around that. You turn your pain into purpose. You turn and you face it. Right. One of the easiest things for me to do was blame mum, you know, blame mum's choice in partners. My dad wasn't there. That must be it. I just didn't have direction. Right? That's why I made stupid mistakes. That's why I hurt a lot of, you know, good people. But that's not the truth. The truth is that they were just equations that led to a particular result. And now I have a choice. And that choice is to turn that pain into some sort of purpose. You have a choice too. So whatever is sitting in the back of your mind that's coming up right now around that pain, maybe it's time to do something with it. I'm going to finish off with this. It's not weak to get some sort of help, right? I said it in one of my earlier podcasts. It's like thinking that only crazy people go to psychologists is like thinking only fat people go to gyms. Your mental health is paramount. And if we were so smart that we understood our brains would be so big that we couldn't understand them. This is why I say it's a continual unraveling of self, right? And I get assistance. I have a coach. They help me through this process. They guide me through it, and I do the work. And I encourage you to do the same. Team, I hope you got a lot out of this podcast. And if you enjoyed it and you think there'll be someone else that would really benefit from it, then I'd love it if you would pass it on to them. Also, as always, jump on Facebook and search Mood Prep Online. I'm going to post the 2 books that I recommend in that group as well. So if you jump on there at some stage, you just search To Be a Man and it'll pop up. But otherwise, team, as always, thank you very much for listening. Peace and pizza. Kick today in the dick and slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
To be everything at once, be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.